Hey guys, we're doing predictions for Tough 24 finale. Obviously, we don't know who the winner of the show is yet, who is going to be the guy to face Demetrius Johnson. I have been watching the show. I don't really have a clear sense of who that guy is going to be. If I think everyone who's won so far, looks good and has a chance of winning the show. If I had to pick one guy, I'd probably pick Alexandre Pantoja, who just won his second fight against Kaikara France, who I thought probably would have been one of the favorites after his first win. So that guy, and after that maybe Tim Elliott, but I don't know. It'll be interesting. I'm excited to see who the winner is going to be, who's going to advance to fight Demetrius Johnson, although I don't think any of those guys stand a chance at all against Johnson. I think any one of them would get dominated. But yeah, I will do a prediction for that separately once that matchup is revealed. And until then, you can check out my predictions for the previous 3 events taking place before this one. Fight Night, Mousasi versus Hall 2, Bader versus Nogueira 2, and Whitaker versus Brunson. Links to all of those videos will be in the description, along with a link to my Twitter, at MMA Breakdown 0. Okay. There are actually some pretty interesting fights on this card. So yeah, I'm looking forward to this. I think it's a better card than the Whitaker versus Brunson Fight Night card taking place before this one. All right, at flyweight, Brandon Moreno versus Ryan Benoit. You got to go with Moreno, at least. I mean, I don't know. He beat Louis Smolka. I don't want to say, this guy's going to climb the ranks and rise to the top. There's a lot of turnover in that division. But I just think that win over Smolka, he really showed a lot. Hit that guillotine beautifully, and it was really doing very well on the feet. Connecting on Smolka, and I thought he even looked good against Pantoja on Tough. Pretty hot, pretty good output with his striking, and showed pretty decent combination striking. Came forward, eventually. Kind of got overwhelmed and then taken down and submitted, but I thought it was really tough and showed a pretty good boxing game. Benoit is kind of all athleticism and really headhunts and looks for that knockout. And other than that, I don't think he has a really complete game. Perez was dominating him technically, and didn't do much until he hit that big shot in the third round that put Pettis down. Ben Nguyen pretty much rolled over him easily, submitted him. This guy was submitted by Josh Sampo. And then against Freddie Serrano, probably didn't deserve to win that fight, even though I took him and did get more done on the feet, outlanded him, but got taken down a lot in that fight. So I'm going to take Brandon Moreno. I think he wins by submission because Benoit does not seem too competitive on the ground. He is an explosive athlete and can hit hard, but I trust the more consistent boxing game of Brandon Moreno. Moreno's got the momentum. I am going to go with him to win by submission. All right, a lightweight, Dong Hyun Kim, not Stun Gun Kim, versus Brendan O'Reilly. And I'm going to go with Kim. This is kind of a pick'em fight to me, just because Kim has lost both of his fights, finished in both of them, lost to Marco Polo Reyes in his last fight. It was a back-and-forth brawl, and he landed his shots, dropped Reyes a couple of times before Reyes put him out. And before that, lost to Dominic Steele in another pretty wild back and forth brawl before Steele, I think it was in the third round, hit that slam that knocked him out. But Brendan O'Reilly, doesn't seem to be able to. I don't think he'll be able to last in that kind of brawl. Doesn't seem durable enough to me. Alan Jouban put him out pretty quickly. Zhang Li Peng, who got cut from the UFC, the winner of Tough China, he completely outworked this guy, dominated him on the ground, hit takedowns, had his back, and just rode his back for the entire fight. And his only win the UFC was against another Tough Nations guy, Vic Grujic, in a not very impressive fight, a pretty clinch-heavy performance. I'm going to go with Dong Kyun Kim. I'll say to win a decision. Just a guy who has more volume and has been in some brawls, whereas O'Reilly has either looked really bad or has gotten an unimpressive win over Grujic. So I'll go with Kim to win a decision, but not super confident about it. Middleweight, Elvis Mutapcic versus Anthony Smith. This is another tough one to call. Mutapcic against Kevin Casey, they fought to a draw. He was able to, by the third round, get the takedown and get some ground and pound off, but he was taken down before that point. Francimar Barroso looked like a really good wrestler against this guy, and he's not a high-level fighter, but hit takedowns repeatedly, timed them very well. So I don't know about Mutapcic's takedown defense, but Anthony Smith is not a wrestler, much more of a brawler, and not even that wild of a brawler. Pretty tall for the weight class and seems kind of like a lumbering, a bit of kind of an awkward fighter, kind of a slow brawler. Not much hand speed and not crazy power, but just kind of a hard-headed guy who keeps coming forward. I'm going to take Mutapcic. I think he out-wrestles him. Anthony Smith got that decision win over Augusto Leleco, but Fajea was able to hit takedowns pretty easily on him, and Smith was pretty reluctant to let his hands go in that fight. And then, before he got cut from the UFC, got knee barred by Braga Neto. So, haven't been impressed with Smith. Mutapcic at least has shown a bit of a wrestling game. I'll go with Mutapcic to out-wrestle him for a decision. At middleweight, Josh Stansbury versus Devin Clark. I'm going to go with Devin Clark. Stansbury was a contestant on Tough 23. Can't remember who he beat. He lost to Khalil Roundtree, got knocked out or TKO'd, and then had a pretty gritty decision win over Corey Hendricks in the finale. Hendricks was outstriking him on the feet and took Stansbury about a round to be able to establish the takedown, and once he did, was able to hold him down and had a real strength and positional advantage over him, and was able to just out-wrestle him for the rest of the fight. Clark, to me, seems a lot more athletic. I see more dynamism in his game. Looked good on the feet against Alex Nicholson. Connected with his shots pretty cleanly several times, and even dropped him at least once, I think. And then was hitting takedowns pretty well too, and it was a really weird scramble. I think in the third round where he lost the fight and had been dominating Nicholson up until that point, both on the feet and on the ground, and I think they were breaking from a scramble or something, and he was on his knees when he ate the punch that put him out. So that to me seems like a fluky thing, and he was looking really good before that. I'm gonna take Clark. I think he transitions better between striking and wrestling, and just seems like the better athlete and the cleaner wrestler, better striker. So I like Clark. I'm gonna say by maybe finish. I'm gonna say decision for now, but I think he might have enough of a striking advantage where he can connect cleanly on Stansbury, who was finished by Roundtree, was getting outstruck by Hendricks. So maybe a finish for Clark. You know what? I think I'm going to take Clark by TKO. All right, at women's strawweight, Kylan Curran versus Jamie Moyle, who is a contestant on Tough 23 as well. She gave Amanda Cooper, one of the finalists, a tough fight. And she seemed like was kind of a decent boxer, pretty hard-nosed, and stood in front of Cooper and was able to give her a tough fight on the feet. Curran, as bad as she looks sometimes, the Alex Chambers fight, after dominating the fight and being in total control, she just gave it away. Got lazy on top and got finished with an armbar. And even against Emily Kagan, was getting dominated in the clinch and worked over before she was able to come out in the second round, get her down, and hit the submission. And then in her last fight, Felice Herrig just got her down right away and worked position until she was able to submit her. So she's definitely lacking in some areas. I think she's not a very physically strong fighter, and Moyle might have a physical advantage over her, but Curran is still definitely pretty talented. She's a pretty talented range striker. She has a pretty heavy kicking game. She's athletic. Good in scrambles. She had a really competitive fight with Paige Van Zandt. I just think that's more than what Moyle has shown, who is tough. But I'm going to take Curran to win a decision. All right, at bantamweight, Alejandro Perez versus Rob Font. I think Rob Font is probably going to finish Perez here, who has looked better, has been developing. He's at AKA, I believe, and in the Jorgensen fight, had a pretty tactical performance. Used the leg kicks pretty well to finish him. Really made end whistle pay for those leg lock attempts. And on the feet, he has some power. Knocked out some guys on Tough like Guido Canetti. He's kind of a headhunter, but I still think he's very green. I think we saw that not only in his last fight against Albert Morales, where Morales was able to match his pace and activity, and was able to connect with some good shots on him, and that was Perez's toughest fight in a while. And even against Patrick Williams, who we don't even see in the UFC anymore, for whatever reason, just hasn't fought, I think, since that Perez fight. He got hit with a shot right out of the gate and got choked unconscious by Williams. So still a green fighter, and Rob Font looks really sound in all facets of the game. He was a good scrappy striker, pushes the pace, he's long, good footwork. Didn't even look that bad against John Lineker. So I like Font. He showed knockout power against George Roop in his debut. He got a finish over Joey Gomez. I think Font just has a more I don't know if diverse, just kind of a more crafty striking game than Perez, who really kind of only looks for those big overhands, and I think he's going to catch him and put him out. So I'm going to take Font by TKO. At featherweight, Gray Maynard versus Ryan Hall. On the surface, you would think Hall is going to win this fight and be able to implement his really technical, high-level grappling game against Maynard. But you know what? That fight against Labov was terrible. It really was. I mean, he did get his back, in some instances in that fight, and was able to ride his back standing. But it lost at least one round with just Labov. in top position, and Ryan Hall was just content to let him sit there. I mean, he wasn't attacking off of his back. He couldn't, come close with any submission attempts. And Lobov literally just laying on him, was able to steal at least one round. And I thought that was a split decision, wasn't it? Maybe not, but I thought Lobov came pretty dangerously close to winning that fight just because Hall was so content to fight off of his back and really couldn't attack with any submissions off of his back. And he has almost couple that with he has almost nothing going for him on the feet. I mean, against Saul Rogers on Tough, this guy was dropped off of a jab. I got to go with Maynard. I mean, Maynard is old and he's been on the decline, and all those knockouts I think have really compromised his chin and kind of shell shocked him. But Hall is, I would be shocked if he knocked out Maynard or even hit him with a shot that put him down. Maynard showed in that fight against Fernando Bruno, he can still take a shot against a lower level fighter, survive, and he can still scramble and wrestle, and he still has that wrestle boxing game that he's always had. So I think he definitely has a big advantage on the feet against Hall. And if Hall's content to play off of his back, Maynard is a gritty wrestler. I think he can hit takedowns and control Hall from top at least much more effectively than Lobov did. And he, like I said, he won a round doing that. So kind of a crazy pick, and I am scared because of the chin of Maynard. But this guy, I thought Maynard won against Yakovlev. And that's a much better fighter than Hall. So I got to go with Maynard. I think he's going to win a decision. I wouldn't even be surprised if he TKOs Hall on the ground. And you know what? I might even go with Maynard by TKO here, because I think he should still have that wrestling advantage over Hall. That top control thing. I might take Maynard by TKO. I don't know. I'm getting a little too crazy now. But at least by decision. At women's bantamweight, Sarah McMann versus Alexis Davis. This is a really interesting fight. I picked McMann over Ai in her last fight, and no one was doing that. But Alexis Davis, I don't think is Jessica Ai. And Alexis Davis, she's not, doesn't go out there and just, run over people. She's usually in pretty tough fights where she almost loses, like her last fight against Sarah Kaufman, where she was losing, but then hit that armbar from her back. The Ai fight, she was getting outstruck, but was able to hit some takedowns and control her on the ground for a bit, enough to win rounds. I think that McMann, given how much she struggled to really get much offense off once she gets people down, I think that Davis will probably submit her at some point after being taken down. We saw that Davis is good off of her back against Kaufman, and McMann, against Lauren Murphy, that was a split decision, and she really has trouble. She's one of these people that she's a wrestler that does not like to get to mount or does not have a really solid. She doesn't advance position. Once she gets you down, she sits in full guard. Misha Tate, after being dropped in that first round and controlled on the ground, Tate was able to get back in it, being the better grappler off of her back and better positional grappler. She hit reversals. And yeah, I think that Davis, will be on her back enough and she'll be given enough time where she'll be able to, make something happen, a submission or reversal. McMann, I think, is still very one-dimensional. She does have an improving striking game. She hits pretty hard, but, Davis is not bad on her feet. Has kind of a low output, tactical leg kick game. She did that to Carmouche. I don't think McMahon's gonna blast her the way she did to Tate. But yeah, McMann is not a good mat grappler, and I think Davis will expose that. So I'm going to take Davis. I'm going to say by third round submission. All right, light heavyweight, Jan Cutelaba versus Jared Cannonier. Cannonier, I'll be honest, I don't remember who he knocked out in his last fight, but looked pretty good. Seems to be light on his feet for a heavyweight. Moves well and obviously has big power. And then his debut, he was knocked out by Sean Jordan. But Jan Cutelaba, in his first fight against Misha Cirkunov, didn't look so great. I think he was dropped before he was submitted in that fight. And then in his last fight against Jonathan Wilson, looked really good. Couldn't put him away. But Wilson really had no success on the feet in that fight. And Jan Cutelaba was just teeing off on him. Looked like a really... capable kickboxer, high output, and just every shot looked like it was doing big damage to Wilson, and looked like, any shot that he landed could have been one that put his lights out. So a really heavy hitter, a lot of output. I mean, this is light heavyweight. So Cannonier, I believe this is his heavyweight debut because he fought Sean Jordan at heavyweight, but... yeah, I'm going to go with Jan Cutelaba, who I think should just have the more well-rounded kickboxing game than Cannonier, but two big guys slugging leather. Either one could get the knockout. Cannonier he should have probably the pure power advantage, but I don't know. I'm going to take Cutelaba. I think he looked really solid against Jonathan Wilson, who's not... a really skilled, high-level fighter. He did lose his fight before that to, Luis Henrique da Silva? Can't remember the guy's name, Frank Waston Silva. Cutelaba, more well-rounded kickboxing game. I'm going to take that over the power of Cannonier. Although, he was dropped by Cirkunov, and Cannonier probably has the power advantage. I don't know, that's tough. But, yeah, I'll go with Cutelaba by decision. All right. At welterweight, Jake Ellenberger versus Jorge Masvidal. This fight really intrigues me. Initially, I was thinking to take Jake Ellenberger. Jorge Masvidal, we know what his problem is, and it's his activity. He's content to sit back, not open up with his offense, not let his hands go, and I feel like also with his wrestling, he doesn't pursue the takedown as much as I'd like to see, because we've seen some really nice wrestling and grappling performances from him. But yeah, he is content to just kind of sit back and play a low output game, and end up losing the fight because of it, even when he has a clear advantage over his opponent, like in the Iaquinta fight. So even though Ellenberger has that same problem, ever since that loss to Campman, he's just been really gun shy, and he retreats into a shell and does not let his hands go. Even though Ellenberger has that same problem, in his last fight against Matt Brown, blitzed Brown early, caught him with a punch they didn't see coming. Was able to put him away with the body kick. I felt like he could do something similar to Masvidal. Really press him early, land a big punch that Masvidal didn't see coming. And, I feel like Masvidal, Pearson was able to use some good forward pressure on him and land a lot more on him than I thought he would. I thought Masvidal would really be able to use use his distance striking better and really control range better in that fight. But Pearson pressed him, and Larkin pressed him too. So I thought that Ellenberger, having kind of a better turnaround performance against Brown, could blitz Masvidal early, maybe hurt him. But I am going to go with Masvidal, actually. And I just don't think that Ellenberger is, back to his old form. The win over Brown was nice. But, Masvidal is hard to hurt. He's not a guy we see hurt often. He can be dropped early in fights, and, maybe that's going to sway me back towards Ellenberger. He was dropped by Chiesa, who's not a good striker. He was dropped by Rustam Habilov, and Darren Cruikshank dropped him. I think the Chiesa and Cruikshank fights, they dropped him in the first round. But he usually survives. He recovers, goes on to win the fight. I just feel like Ellenberger is not going to throw the volume that he needs to over 3 rounds to win a decision. I don't trust his one-punch knockout power against Masvidal. I do think he could drop him early. He dropped Wonder Boy, and he cracked who was the guy, Tarek Saffiedine. He cracked him right at the end of their fight, but I think that Ellenberger is still just going to be hesitant to throw. And we saw Tarek Saffiedine really use a tactical performance. He controlled range, outstruck him from outside. I think Masvidal can do the same. I think he could even hurt Ellenberger. We know that Masvidal has power. He just doesn't throw a lot of volume. And he's strong in the clinch, where we don't see Ellenberger fight too often. I don't really know who would have the clear advantage there, but aside from Ellenberger getting like an early stoppage, I don't see him getting a late knockout, and I just see Masvidal, even if he doesn't throw a lot of volume, I see him just landing those shots from the outside, controlling range, making Ellenberger uncomfortable, and Ellenberger not really opening up for the rest of the fight. So I'm going to take Masvidal to win a decision. All right, the co-main event and the last fight I'll be making a prediction for in this video at flyweight, Joseph Benavidez versus Henry Cejudo. I've always thought for a long time this matchup, I think, was supposed to happen a year ago on the Houston card. I thought back then that Benavidez was just going to roll over Cejudo, because Cejudo was coming off of that fight against Chico Camus, where they just got into a sloppy back and forth brawl, and Cejudo was staggered a couple of times. He could not get that takedown easily. I don't remember if he even took him down at all. But it was a really tough fight for him. Cejudo had a hand speed advantage. He was able to beat him to the punch in most exchanges. And Cejudo just kind of barely edged him to win the decision. And Benavidez is a lot better than that. He doesn't really get into sloppy brawls. I do think his striking has kind of technically regressed since Dwayne Ludwig left, but he's still pretty effective and pretty solid there. Had a nice performance against Bogotinov, where he was able to get in and out, countered Bogotinov pretty effectively, used his footwork to stay on the outside and avoid those big power shots from Bogotinov. And I think that's what he's going to do to Cejudo here. I don't think Cejudo has the same footwork. Cejudo does hit hard, and he cracks pretty hard, and does have solid boxing combinations, but Benavidez, I think, has a more varied attack with his striking. I really think it's going to be that in and out game where he's able to score on Cejudo and get away before Cejudo can return fire. Benavidez is also a really good grappler. Cejudo struggled to get takedowns, at least in the Camus fight, and even when he does get takedowns, like against Chris Carriasso, doesn't really do a whole lot to finish the fight. Doesn't throw him with submissions and has decent ground and pound, I guess, but not fight-ending ground and pound. I do think, though, Cejudo should have the wrestling advantage. Benavidez is a good grappler. He's strong in scrambles. Has a good guillotine choke. Had a nice submission win over Tim Elliott. But he should not win a straight-up wrestling battle with Cejudo. But if Cejudo did get him on the ground, I don't think he would finish him right there. And I don't think Cejudo can out-wrestle him for 3 rounds because Benavidez is kind of elusive. He's light on his feet. He's quick. So I just expect Benavidez to have the speed advantage. I think Cejudo is still really struggling to mold himself into well-rounded MMA fighter. At least one that puts all the parts of their game together. Benavidez really has accomplished that, I think, much more than Cejudo. And I think Benavidez is going to win on the feet, just being the quicker striker, having the in and out game, a more varied striking attack. I think Cejudo is kind of going to get frustrated and not going to be able to reach Benavidez. There's a small part of me, though, that feels like Benavidez might kind of not be on the decline because he's been winning. And by the way, Benavidez, his only losses ever in his whole career are to Demetrius Johnson and Dominic Cruz. That's something no one ever talks about, but that is extremely respectable and impressive, and worthy of praise. And Cejudo, I think, is just not on that level and hasn't beaten guys on that level. He hasn't faced a Dodson or someone like that. His biggest win is Formiga, who couldn't really challenge him on the feet. But I think I was saying, Benavidez, having fought for the title twice and lost, I think he kind of might be at that point where he's kind of topping out, not improving more, and could be overtaken by a younger, hungrier guy like Cejudo. So I think there's a small chance that Cejudo could, close the distance and manage to land a big shot that hurts him, or out wrestle him maybe the entire fight for a decision. But we haven't seen signs of Benavidez slowing down. I think Cejudo, like we saw in his most recent fight against DJ, still doesn't really have a striking game that is good enough to compete against the elite guys. So I'm going to take Benavidez to win a decision. All right, guys, those are my predictions for Tough 24 finale. Thank you for watching. Again, I will be back with my prediction for the main event, Demetrius Johnson versus the winner of the Tough show, when that matchup is revealed. And until then, check out my predictions for Fight Night Belfast, Mousasi versus Hall 2, Bader versus Nogueira 2, and Whitaker versus Brunson. Thanks, guys, and I will see you in the next video, which will be Fight Night Lewis versus Abdurakhimov. Thanks, guys. See you next time. Bye.